What's going on today, YouTube? And we are fucking back. We are back in the act and don't know how to lack 2 times to have pack. Now, we are back, and this time around is didn't change. Things didn't change. You already know. You know why? Because drum roll, we got a green screen. You know what I'm saying? We got a green screen now, so now all you get to do now is see this handsome man's face. Ladies, I don't want my girl to hear that. She's gonna fuck me up. But anyways, this time around we get to just see video. You know what I'm saying? Because I hated when I had the chance to see everything else that was in back of me. That shit looked the type whack to me. I don't know why. Some people don't care, and I know y'all don't care, which I'm happy I don't care. But I want y'all to be able to just see video and face. You know what I'm saying? Face and video. Video, face. They go together like 1 + 1 is 3. You know what I mean? So today's video is going to be about the cartel leader who died in prison. You feel me? A lot of these cartel leaders and these big, gangsters and whatever the case may be, they end up dying. You know what I'm saying? Or either going to jail or dying in jail. You know what I'm saying? And it's tragic, you feel me? Because I don't wish jail or death on nobody. Jail and death, excuse me, on anybody. You know what I mean? Thank you, baby. She just brought me some ice. Not the ice that we need around the neck yet. We're going to get that soon, right, baby? Yes. You feel me? But we're going to talk about this cartel leader who died in prison, and we're going to check this video out. I like doing these type of videos where I talk about cartels and Mexican cartels, Colombian, African, if there is any African cartels, or in what's that, Mexican cartels. You feel me? The Mexican cartel, I think this one is about y'all are real ass motherfuckers. Like, you feel me? Y'all real. Y'all take over the jails, y'all take over the cells, y'all take over the bells. Don't play with them. You know what I'm saying? Don't play with it, don't play with it, don't play with it. Just lay with it. So let's get right into this. You know what I'm saying? We got the green screen in the back of us. Shout out to my baby. She up with the green screen. Let's get right into this. Boom, boom. Wait, before I get into this, I want y'all to comment down below, like, subscribe to your boy. You know what I'm saying? Help one another. You feel me, boy? Like, you know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to hit 4,000 subs, man. Like, look, help your boy. Look out for your boy. You know what I mean? I'm out here grinding. I ain't gonna front. I ain't make a video in a while because I was worrying about getting this green screen and these lights so y'all could be able to see better. You know what I'm trying to say? Make a better video for my people. You feel me? Like, at the end of the day, you don't want to just see bullshit. You feel me? And I've been reading some of y'all comments. Some of y'all be violating, you know what I mean? Which I don't have to violate. You don't have to come at me all the time. I'm going to stop cutting in videos and talking. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to let the video play. You can ask nicely. You don't have to come at me. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know? I'm talking to you. So let's get right into it, man. It's your boy.
3 more judges have quit their jobs after being threatened by the murderous drug cartels.
The Colombian drug barons, thought to be fleeing their government's crackdown, have made their presence felt with startling ferocity.
Colombia's drug lords responded today to the government's new Get Tough policy. They declared war on the government and launched a series of attacks that killed 1 person.
On the 31st of May, 2022, an 83-year-old cartel leader died in an American prison. But there wasn't any noise. Not the media, not the news. It was almost as if Gilberto Rodriguez Orejuela was a nobody. But he wasn't. He was El Adrejequista, the chess master, the one who brought the laws of commerce.
Don't play with nobody whose names start with EL,
who
bro.
worked from the shadows. The man who waged war on Pablo Escobar and won. Gilberto was a narco-revolutionary. And today, I'm gonna tell you all about him. Who was this cartel leader who died in prison? Gilberto Rodriguez Orejuela was born on the 30th of January 1939 to a painter.
ATL Comic Convention is happening.
I hate when they do this shit, man.
Like many of his contemporaries, including Pablo Escobar, Gilberto was introduced to crime from a very early age. However, unlike Escobar, he wasn't born poor. His family was middle class. Gilberto started his life in the Mariquita municipality of the Tolima department. Departments in Colombia are the equivalent of states in the US. Some years after the birth of his younger brother Miguel, his parents decided to move to the city of Cali, which was the capital of the Valle del Cauca department. Life went on just fine for the Orejuelas until, all of a sudden, Gilberto's father decided to to leave the family. This decision plunged them into poverty. Their mother, who had never had a job and never needed to, suddenly found herself responsible for the upkeep of the entire family. Aside from Miguel, Gilberto had 4 other siblings, so it was a lot for the poor woman. Thankfully, Gilberto was aware, so despite the fact that he was just 13 at the time, he stepped up and took responsibility for his home. At the time, he was a student at the San Luis Gonzaga school, which sat in the heart of the capital. Gilberto got a job as a delivery boy, running errands for a drugstore that wasn't too far from his school. His job description was simple: transport medication to elderly people who couldn't make the distance to the store. There are no records for how much Gilberto was paid, and if this was what led him into theft, but like I established earlier, there was a necessity for survival, a necessity to return his life to the way things were. And when opportunity meets greed, criminals are born. In Gilberto's case, he began to diversify his clientele base. Beyond the assignment to elderly people, the young Orejuela stole drugs from his workplace and began peddling it at a markup price to addicts. This was the grand foreshadowing of what was going to be Gilberto's legendary narcotics career. Did Gilberto see this future from an early age? Did he already know this was the path he would take? Or was this new reality merely a consequence of his cruel fate? We will never know. What we do know is that Gilberto's younger brother Miguel was right beside him. They delivered the drugs together, stole together, and even shared the profits together. By his 20s, Gilberto had started his own drugstore, and with time, both brothers would become business partners of one of the biggest, most corrupt, and yet most influential cartels of the 20th century. But wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves. There were a lot of
they
steps
was
that needed to be
smart. I
taken
fucks
first.
with them, bro.
Greatness, good or bad, takes time and a lot of effort. And in the case of Gilberto and his brother, the first step toward their dream life began with kidnapping and extortion. 1960s. Through the 50s, the Orejuelas were mostly missing in action. However, there is no doubt that they worked together during this period of absence, and there is also no doubt that it was deliberate, because when they would resurface in the 60s, they were established criminals. Gilberto now had a chain of pharmacy stores that bent the rules enough to maximize profit. Gilberto was well into his 30s, and rich. From Gilberto's perspective, they were not rich enough. Gilberto had ambition, but most importantly, he had a plan. A plan that drew something of a line between where he was at the start of the 1960s and what would eventually become the multi-billion-dollar cocaine traffic enterprise named the Cali Cartel. He and his brother teamed up with a mutual friend, a crook named Jose Santa Cruz Londono. Londono was, how to say this delicately, a resourcefully violent man. Some would say he had an appetite for certain extremities. Others would say he was a man who did what needed to be done. But whichever it was, there was no doubt that he was the perfect partner to Gilberto's next venture, Las Chemas. Las Chemas was a criminal organization that specialized in sabotage, smuggling, extortion, and kidnapping. The sabotage and smuggling went hand in hand. They targeted vehicles and dealt in lightweight contrabands like fabrics and whiskey. This aspect of their business was relatively safe, but it wasn't profitable enough. Extortion and kidnapping, on the other hand, were very risky, and as a result, very lucrative. Thankfully, they had Londono on their side to oversee the grislier parts of the business. After almost a decade of running Las Chemas, Gilberto and his team hit the jackpot after kidnapping 2 Swiss citizens from a diplomat's family in Cali. Gilberto demanded $700,000 in ransom. They obliged. And today, many believe this amount of money, which was a staggering sum in the 1970s, was what facilitated Gilberto's next criminal enterprise, because in the months that followed the ransom, Gilberto and his brother began to assemble a team that would come to be known as the Cali Cartel. The birth of the Cali Cartel, 1975.
It happens frequently, and it happened again last night. A cocaine arrest, this one at Miami International Airport. A Canadian accused of trying to smuggle 3 pounds of cocaine into this country in 3 pairs of platform shoes. Its estimated value on the streets, $700,000.
The 70s was epic for anyone who loved drugs. The decade ushered in cocaine with a rage, and soon it had surpassed coffee as the chief export in Colombia. By 1973, some guy named Pablo Escobar, not sure, but you might have heard of him, formed the Medellin cartel. It is possible that it was this move.
Nah, why he playing with Pablo Escobar name like that? Like, bro, stop playing. And I want y'all to check out Narcos, the Pablo Escobar story edition, bro. That shit is fire, but get back into it.
That inspired Gilberto to branch into the trade. We will never know. But what we do know is that 2 years after the Medellin cartel was formed, in 1975, Gilberto established the Cali Cartel, along with his brother Miguel, Jose Santa Cruz Londono from Las Chemas, and Helmer Herrera. From the very beginning, Gilberto sought to differentiate himself from Escobar's enterprise. Unlike Escobar, he was far more educated and came from a more respectable social background, and thus didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. This allowed him to adopt a less flashy flashy criminal persona, and it also allowed him to move between social classes without sticking out like a sore thumb. Meanwhile, Gilberto went to great lengths to differentiate his cartel from Escobar's enterprise. He nicknamed his cartel Los Caballeros de Cali, which translates to the Gentlemen of Cali. They tried to take a moral high ground, choosing to traffic the less damaging marijuana, but marijuana had low margins of profit and required massive amounts to be trafficked in order to cover the cost of resources spent, so it wasn't profitable from a business perspective. Eventually, they caved and began transporting cocaine, just like Escobar. It was Gilberto who sent Elmer Herrera to New York City to establish a port for distribution. It was easy. Why? Well, because the US government didn't see cocaine as a real problem in the 70s. They were too busy dealing with heroin, which had already had a very problematic.
That's crazy, bro. And they talked about the cartel, the Cali Cartel, in that Netflix special.
Hank is
Need y'all to go watch that shit, bro.
Mainliner beyond hope. He is long past getting any kicks from marijuana. His body is conditioned to heroin, one of the most powerful, dangerous drugs known to man. So dangerous that its importation, even for medical uses, has been banned in the United States since 1925.
Another way that the Cali Cartel differed from Escobar's Medellin was through its structure. While Medellin was centralized, with everyone beneath Escobar answering to him alone and paying taxes directly to him, the Cali Cartel was divided into 5 groups that were further subdivided into several other cells. Everyone had their own shop called cells, and could make their own decisions without having to consult Gilberto. Gilberto's job was to lay out the vision, check any excesses, and collect his cut. Over time, the older Orejuela came to be deeply respected for his knack for strategy. He was always in touch with the bigger picture, a master of the chess game of the world of business.
He is very smart person. He is so-called the ajedrecista. You know the ajedrecista, chess player, because he is careful, he acts carefully.
His younger brother Miguel was better suited for the daily operations and dealings. With Londoño and Herrera already on the team, Gilberto recruited more members that he trusted, and with time they were controlling a cocaine distribution network that stretched from Los Angeles, Miami, and New York City to the very heart of the Soviet Union. These men were Gilberto's associates. Under each of them, a complex web of multiple cells ran independently under managers who remitted royalties to Gilberto, his brother, and his associates. This made business more fluid, but more importantly, it insulated the bosses at the top.
Those involved in transport don't know the distributors don't know the money launderers, and none of them, theoretically, know the drug bosses in Cali.
And business boomed. Under Gilberto's guidance, the Cali Cartel found inventive methods of exporting massive quantities of the hard drug, one of which was by hiding them in thick wooden planks that were shipped from the port of Buenaventura on Colombia's Pacific coast to various warehouses and shell companies in the United States. Now, it wasn't as if Cali had no enemies in the 70s. They definitely did. In fact, international authorities had begun discovering shipments as far back as 76, when 290 kilos of coca paste was seized before it left Peru for Colombia. And in 78, the US would hop on the train of suspicion, when federal agents uncovered a cocaine distribution network in Queens, New York, which belonged to Gilberto. But you see, what kept Gilberto off their radar was the unique way he operated. Unlike Escobar, who had oversized political ambitions, Gilberto was okay with being a kingmaker from the shadows. And unlike Escobar, who waged war on government officials who didn't give him what he wanted, Gilberto found a way to ensure his offer was one they would never be able to refuse. Threats of violence almost always ended in threats, and threats from a man as formidable as Gilberto were almost always enough to get things done.
Oh, they have great investments in Colombia. I would say that they are among the greatest investors in this country. They invest in banking, construction, industry, agricultural development, etc., etc., etc.
By starting and investing in so many banks and other financial institutions from Colombia to Panama, Gilberto built a smokescreen of influence around himself and his cartel. He was practically the narco angel investor of the 1970s. Those who could be bought were bought, and those who couldn't had the roofs over their heads taken forcibly. And at the end of a long day's work, while Escobar had a fleet of cars and a zoo in his palatial mansions, Gilberto drove in a low-cost car that your average government worker would drive to a home that was located in an upper-middle-class neighborhood that your average government worker might live in. Unholy unions, 1980s. By the early 1980s, the Cali Cartel were responsible for 20% of the world cocaine market, and Gilberto had done all of this from the shadows, building the Cali Cartel into one of the most discreet yet successful drug trafficking organizations in the world. Their only competition was the Medellin cartel, who still had the lion's share and controlled the remaining 80%. Under Gilberto's leadership, the Cali Cartel had their own roots, their own markets, and through Gilberto's philosophy of diplomacy before violence, they eventually found a way to spread their net of influence by partnering with the Medellin cartel. Let's be frank, Gilberto and Escobar weren't friends. And it's not just because Escobar was his direct competitor, it was because Pablo was the complete opposite of everything Gilberto was and stood for. However, Escobar was undeniably successful, and Gilberto wasn't prepared to go to war with him. It would destabilize both cartels, their businesses, and the global drug trade. It would also draw undue attention from the authorities. So they teamed up, divided up the major United States distribution points. The Cali Cartel took New York City, and the Medellin Cartel took South Florida and Miami. This stabilized the drug market in the early 1980s and opened the door for more collaborations. Unfortunately, this alliance from hell had its drawbacks, because by becoming Escobar's ally, the Cali Cartel inherited Escobar's enemies. You see, in the 80s, after Escobar, rather unwisely, tried and failed to get into Colombian politics, he waged a vicious war on their government. This became the recipe for Gilberto's worst nightmare, because it drew in America's attention and forced government policy to be entirely focused on tackling cartels. So Gilberto began to look for insurance for himself in alternate, untapped markets, and he found it in Europe. Gilberto formed alliances with the notorious Italian mafia organization La Camorra and established a system of cocaine transport and distribution in Europe through Italy with the mafia's support. At some point, it was safe to say that he was responsible for almost every grain of coke sniffed in Europe. And till today, you can probably draw a straight line between the Cali Cartel and anyone who currently has a drug problem there. Meanwhile, Pablo's methods didn't go down well with Gilberto. But again, like I said, he had made a choice and wasn't about to back down just because of some violence to some already violent people. Unfortunately, by the mid-80s, their testy alliance began to crumble. On the one hand, the competition between the two cartels became too fierce to contain, and other smaller.
The first time you made a sale online was also the first time you heard of a town named...
began to exploit the problems this caused. Eventually, it was a close ally of the Medellin cartel that triggered their parting. Rodriguez Gacha, also known as El Sombrero, attempted to move in on the New York City market, which had already been ceded to the Cali Cartel with Escobar's blessing. Then in 1984, Gilberto was with Jorge Ochoa, a close associate of Escobar in Madrid, when they both got arrested. Ochoa's arrest planted seeds of suspicion in Escobar's mind, and when Ochoa remained in prison after Gilberto was released a year later, their relationship fractured. Throughout Gilberto's incarceration, America pressured the Spanish government for his extradition, but Gilberto's lawyers were able to convince the government of Colombia to pressure the Spanish head, Felipe González, to deport him to Colombia in 1986. In Colombia, Gilberto was transferred to the Bella Vista prison in Cali, where he served another 13 months. However, this is where Gilberto's influence began to show up for him. Prosecutors were more than ready to bring down Gilberto, because they knew it would be a massive blow, if not the end of the Cali Cartel. They even opened an investigative process that would have indicted Gilberto for drug trafficking, but in 1988 the entire case was thrown out due to a supposed lack of evidence. Gilberto was acquitted. He was once again a free man, and immediately after Gilberto stepped out of jail, he stepped back into the shadows. However, his cover was already blown and his days were numbered, because while he now moved in the dark, the US government followed him closely with a spotlight. Meanwhile, a war was brewing. Cali versus Medellin. As the 80s drew to a close, Pablo Escobar became radioactive. He had already murdered a sitting minister, Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, in 1984. This act of narco-terrorism caused the presidency of Cesar Gaviria to move against him. International attention, specifically from the US, was also drawn towards Escobar and the Colombian drug trade. At some point, Escobar was fighting a war against the government, extradition, and the press. In 1986, he ordered the assassination of Guillermo Camo, who was the director of the newspaper El Espectador, in order to intimidate any other journalist who thought of opposing him. And by the close of 1987, Escobar was demanding Gilberto to join him in terrorizing the country in order to force them to ban extraditions. And so, he declined the request. Escobar felt betrayed and declared war on him too. Things were now back to normal. Cali and Medellin, sworn enemies. Unfortunately for Escobar, he had underestimated the extent to which Gilberto was willing to play dirty. There would be no proxy war. They went out for each other's throats. As Escobar evaded authorities by moving from safe house to safe safe house, he sent assassins to take Gilberto's life. Stores belonging to Gilberto were bombed, money was lost, civilians died. But most of all, Gilberto was pissed. So he retaliated and went after Escobar's entire family. On the evening of Wednesday, January 13th, 1988, the Cali Cartel detonated a car bomb with 150 pounds of dynamite in front of the Monaco building in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Medellin. Pablo's family were in the building that evening. Luckily for them, they didn't die, but the bomb destroyed the neighborhood, shattering windows in a 4-block radius and killing 3 while injuring another 10. On another occasion, Gilberto employed a British commando named Peter McAleese to kill Escobar, but he failed.
Well, Escobar is not universally loved. He was the target earlier this year of an assassination attempt, one that involved British mercenaries. As ABC's Pierre Salinger reports, there is some mystery about who was behind it.
Hit after hit, miss after miss, Escobar remained evasive to both Gilberto and the government, but his power waned, and eventually he struck a deal that saw him build his own prison, La Catedral. But Gilberto wasn't done with El Patron. He tried once again to take Pablo's life by bombing the prison from the sky, but once again, he failed. However, Medellin as a whole was on the decline, and Cali was on the rise. For every territory that Pablo lost, Gilberto gained. For the first time, the cost of battling Pablo Escobar made economic sense. So Gilberto adjusted in his seat and put his money where his mouth was. This time, he would make sure that he didn't miss. The fall of the Cali Cartel. The 90s marked both the complete domination and the inevitable downfall of the Cali Cartel. In a very conflicting way, both events happened around the same time. In 1993, Gilberto and other heads of the Cali Cartel funded an organization called Perseguidos por Pablo Escobar, better known as Los Pepes. They were made of former members of the Medellin cartel who had been targeted for assassination by Escobar. Now, Los Pepes were out for revenge, and since their goals aligned with those of the Cali Cartel, Gilberto happily obliged to provide them with the resources necessary to bring an end to Escobar. The Cali Cartel contributed at least $30 million to Los Pepes. Meanwhile, the Colombian government had formed their own anti-Escobar organization called Search Block, a joint police and army unit specifically created to track down Medellin leaders. And it wasn't just the Colombian government that had gotten in bed with Los Pepes, the Americans were in on it too, which is ironic because in 1991, law enforcement agencies had seized 67 tons of cocaine, 75% of which was owned by the Cali Cartel. And in 1992, the US had tapped an associate of Gilberto, which led to the arrest of 6 of his business associates and the seizure of more than 13,000 pounds of cocaine that was hidden in a load of broccoli. Throughout 1993, the same year that they successfully made Escobar a past tense, the US Customs Service seized 12,000 pounds of cocaine from the Cali Cartel in Miami and intercepted 3 maritime ships that had a total of 37,000 pounds of the white substance. So, the Americans working with the Cali Cartel were there merely for necessity's sake. They weren't allies of Gilberto, they were a growing thorn in his backside. But their attacks were still relatively easy to ignore, because with Escobar dead, Gilberto cannibalized the drug market. El ajedrecista, the chess player, had moved his final piece. Checkmate. The Cali Cartel now controlled 90% of the drug trade. At their peak, they were making $7 billion a year. Do the math. Game over. Gilberto had won. So, what was next? Well, on the one hand, the Americans and the Colombians turned all of their resources towards dismantling the Cali Cartel and its leaders, especially Gilberto and his brother. In 1995, the US Treasury Department published a list of around 100 companies that were directly linked to the drug lord, his brother, and his cartel. They knew that the only way to legally hurt him was by destroying his public image and the facade of legitimate companies he had used to mask his drug empire. On another hand, Gilberto began to lose scope, just like Pablo Escobar. He wasn't trying to join politics, no, he was trying to control it. In that same year, intelligence agencies revealed that Gilberto was attempting a narco-democracy. In essence, he was trying to install the next president of Colombia. This damning piece of evidence was what presidential candidate Andres Pastrana Arango used to accuse the president-elect Ernesto Samper Pizano of receiving at least $3.7 million from the Cali Cartel to finance his campaign. However, the investigations advanced by judicial authorities at that time determined that there was not enough evidence of drug money sponsoring Samper's presidential campaign and that he had knowledge of this fact. But even if it was true, Samper was now firmly under the spotlight, and if he
At Trusted Tech Team, we provide the
was with Gilberto, he no longer had the liberty of preserving that relationship. He had to crack down on the drug lord. Between June and July of 1995, the remaining 6 of the 7 heads of the cartel were arrested, including Londoño. Banks, stores, schools, any facility remotely affiliated with the drug lord was shut down. On the 9th of June 1995, the walls eventually closed in on Gilberto when he was arrested by the Colombian National Police during a house raid in Cali. They had missed him days earlier when they searched his home because he was hiding in a hollowed-out bathroom cabinet with an oxygen tank. 2 months later, his brother Miguel would be arrested after getting betrayed by his main bodyguard, Jorge Salcedo. Gilberto was transferred to Bogota and sentenced to 12 years in prison, and confessing to some crimes, his sentence was reduced. From behind bars, Gilberto continued to pull the strings on his dwindling empire, but he was getting tired, like a man who had done it all. Gilberto was prepared to retire. In fact, it has been suggested that he facilitated his own arrest. As his sentence came to an end in the early 2000s, there was still a final, dreadful chapter waiting for him. A chapter that threatened his hopes for a peaceful retirement. Because while Colombia might have gotten their version of justice, the Americans were still waiting in line. In 2004, after a brief release, the AG of Colombia ordered Gilberto's arrest once again. This time, it was for a specific case from 1990, where he sent 150 kilos of cocaine to the United States. The US pressured the Colombian government for his extradition, and in 2006, much to the horror of Gilberto, he was extradited to the US, where he was sentenced to 30 years in prison for conspiring to import cocaine into the United States and launder drug money. He pled guilty in Miami to charges of conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States, and after his confession, he agreed to forfeit $2.1 billion in assets. The agreement, however, did not require him to cooperate in any other investigations. He was solely responsible for identification of assets stemming from his cocaine trafficking. From that time till his death on the 31st of May 2022, Gilberto was held at the Butner Federal Prison. His legacy. Gilberto was built differently. Among his peers, he stood out, not awkwardly, but as a criminal who always had a plan. And it just wasn't for himself alone. Gilberto had planned out the future for his entire family, especially his children. He made sure that they weren't involved in the drug trade. He sent them to study in top American universities and made sure they were insulated from his criminal dealings. He knew his way of life wasn't sustainable, and he wanted no child of his to continue in it. In fact, when his first son got into jail for dealing drugs, Gilberto was so angry that he paid him a visit with a belt and flogged the grown man like he was an unruly 5-year-old. But then when Gilberto was asked how he felt about his life, he said he had no regrets. According to him, he lived well and he achieved everything he set out to achieve. And so, when he died, it spelled the end of an era, the first generation of Colombian narco-traffickers. But at the same time, it ushered in the birth of another era of Colombian traffickers. Have you ever wondered why you only hear of Mexican cartels in the news? For all the worship that Escobar gets in the Western world, the new age of Colombian drug traffickers have chosen Gilberto's path. They have perfected his low-profile approach to drug trafficking. They have fine-tuned his approach to infiltrate legitimate businesses and the higher echelons of power. If Gilberto were alive today, he would be proud of what they have achieved. He would be proud to know that this new age of drug traffickers are impossible to catch. He would be proud to hear them referred to as the Invisibles.
We will, for the first time, make available the appropriate resources of America's armed forces. And for the drug kingpins,
fuck his ass. He don't care about black people. Yo, I'm not gonna front. Gilberto was a straight up smart man. He stood low and got all the bread. What fucked him up though was greed and hate in my eyes. He wanted to go against Pablo Escobar so bad that he went in bed with the US and he got fucked. They stuck 18 inches right up inside of him and turned around and booked his stupid ass. Like, no lie. I'm not even gonna front. He was a smart man. I'm not even gonna lie. And I didn't even know he died recently. Last year, actually, around this time. Word. That's crazy. And it is funny how a lot of the Mexican cartels is being publicized, but a lot of the Colombian ones, they lay low. That's a smart thing. If you're doing anything illegal, stay out of the limelight. And I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything illegal. I don't want nobody to do anything illegal. It's so much ways to make money nowadays that you don't have to do this shit. But one thing I can say about him, he was a smart man. Excuse me. He was a smart man. Like, and I don't be understanding, like, bro, why the fuck, if you already got billions of dollars in the drug game, why I don't be understanding, why do they be want to do so much, get into politics and do, like, bro, this shit is illegal, bro. Like, trying to choose your own president, all this other dumbass. Like, bro, why, bro? Like, why? Greed is always a man's downfall, because when you're being greedy, you don't know. At the end of the day, we all try to grind and become rich. And after, when you becoming rich and trying to, like, live a regular prosperous life, you be wanting to do other things. And it's like, bro, power, when you're doing something illegal, power goes but so far. Like, greed go get you but so far. Get out of the game. If you making all your money, just say fuck that shit. You know what? I'm taking my billions, taking my money, my kids, my family, and I'm out of here, bro. He did the right things, made the right moves, but got fucked because he wanted to be greedy. Like, y'all gotta see that Narcos Netflix movie, bro. I'm not even gonna front. I didn't even know that he was the cartel leader, because the shit was about Pablo Escobar, the Narcos series that I'm talking about. But they always brought up the Cali Cartel, and they operated real smoothly and smartly and sharp too. They was sharp. The gentlemen of Cali, they were smart. I ain't even going front. But being greedy gets you nowhere, bro. Only in a cell every single time, bro. Every single time. When you got what you want, ain't no reason to keep going and being thirsty and, oh, I want to take over this. I want this. Like, bro, why get into politics, bro? Politics is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of people who can't decide on something that's good for the people that's underneath them. And let alone, sometimes the people higher up never care about the people that's underneath them. Only some. Only some. People only care about themselves and power. And when they get that power, they don't know what to do with it. They always talk about, oh, we gotta feed the homeless. Like, even in the U.S., they talk about, oh, we gotta do this for our vets and do this for the people that's living in Section 8. And as soon as they get in power, they be like, man, they need to kiss my ass. And which is so whack, bro. When you get the bag, keep your bag, take your family, and go live happily ever after, bro. The end. Stop trying to be so thirsty. It's crazy because they control 20% of the drug trade, and they were low. Pablo Escobar was throwing himself out there, being flashy, wanting to get into politics, killing people that's higher up, and that got him nowhere but in jail and killed. Like, if you got 20%, 20% is better than nothing. 20% of nothing is nothing. But if you got 20% and you low and the police ain't on you, yo, stay low, get to it, get the money. You making some type of money. Why want to get the whole 100%? Why want to get the other 80%? Now you out there and you just like, fuck it. It ain't always got to be like that. If you got 20% and you get 100, then you must know, and deep down in your mind, like, oh, fuck it. Like, I don't even care no more. Because that got to run through your head. Like, I don't even care no more. Like, I'm going to get rich and it's like, it's whatever now. Bro, get out the game. If you got the bag, you came up from nothing to something, why continue? You got all the money. I think he fucked up at, but the U.S. is dirty players, bro. They'll tell you, yeah, I got your back. And then, as soon as you thinking they with you, they go around and bomb your shit. Stupid. There ain't no trust and loyalty, especially when it's coming to money and power. A lot of times, people only care about themselves, bro. Now, what you think? You think that he was smart? Because I think Gilberto, whatever his name is, he was smart. But he did something real stupid. Once they started controlling 90% of the drug trade, it was over. Their demise was coming. He did 13 years for no reason, just for the U.S. to be like, stupid, come on, you're going to get through 30 years. Bro, they found 13,000 tons, bro, of cocaine. And they was eating during the 70s. Yo, bro, during the 70s, around that time, Ronald Reagan and them era, bro, they did not care about cocaine. You can sell as much cocaine as you want. You will be good. Around that time, you was good. they were caring more about weed in the U.S. than they was caring about cocaine. Because you want to know why? 99% of the people that was rich and powerful and in politics, they was all on cocaine. They was using cocaine as if it was like a beer. And what I mean by like beer is how when they wanted to enjoy themselves and for excitement, they would go to cocaine. It was the white man's drug. They didn't care. 90s, I mean the 70s, the 80s. Bro, they cared about heroin and marijuana more than they cared about cocaine. That's crazy. But tell me what y'all think, man. I ain't gonna front. This video was real formal. Man, I don't want nobody to go out there and sell drugs. It's really crazy, bro. I ain't gonna front. It's really crazy how they came up like that. But it's your boy. I'm back. You're gonna see more videos from me as the day go by. You know what I'm saying? I miss my people, man. Miss y'all, man. I miss y'all. It's your boy. Peace.